recall, in the past few days we've talked about transformations. Those are the rotations, your reflections, translations, and dilations. Now we're going to move into congruency and similarity and how those are defined with our transformations. So to begin with, we have the definitions. Two figures are congruent if one of them can be rotated, reflected, and or translated in order to match the other. So any form, you can do them as many times as you want. You can rotate it 17 times, and it would still be congruent. But two figures are similar if one can be rotated, reflected, translated, or dilated as many times as you want to match the other. So your difference here is with two congruent figures, they're the exact same shape and they're the exact same size. With similar figures, they're the exact same shape, but they're different sizes because they're dilated. And just as a reminder, as we've said before, a reflection is that flip, a rotation is a turn, translation is you slide the figure one way or the other, and a dilation is you either shrink it or you expand it. And you need to remember that when you dilate something, that it's proportional. So all of your sides would shrink by half, or all of your sides expand by 4 times. You can't have 2 of your sides in a triangle expand by 2, and 1 of your sides expand by 3. It's proportional in order for it to be a true dilation. So you need to remember that with similarity, if you dilate something, it needs to be all of the sides grow or shrink the same amount. Alright, so now we have these two figures. Figure A is in red and figure B is in green. And we have figure A was translated 2 units right, and then it was translated 3 units down, and then it was rotated 90 degrees counterclockwise. So from our definitions, is this figure congruent, similar, or neither? Congruent, and why is that? Correct. She said the size wasn't changed. So it didn't dilate, it was just translated and rotated. So that makes it congruent. And if you look, so these, in figure A, this top part here and your bottom one down here are each 3 units. And then your sides in B are each 3 units. And then, so those are the same. And then your sides in A are 4 units, while your top and bottom in B are 4 units. So they're the exact same size as well as being the same shape. Alright, so what about this one? This one doesn't tell you what happened, but you can look to see you can kind of see what they did to it. Are these congruent, similar, or neither? Yes, they're similar because they're different sizes. Now, you need to check to make sure just because they're different sizes, it doesn't mean that they did it proportionally. So you need to check that. So when you look, you see, well, the first thing is they had to have reflected this image. So they flipped it over your y-axis right here. So that's why they're facing different directions. And then when you look at the size, you see, okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. The bottom is 4 units long. And so what is the bottom over here? When you look 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units. So it's 4 over 6, so it's 2/3. So now you need to check your side to see if it's the same difference. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4 again, and here you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's 4, 6, so it's 2/3 again. So both of those sides are 2/3, which means they did dilate proportionally. And the reason we don't need to check your hypotenuse is because it's right angle, right triangle. With your Pythagorean theorem, it tells you you don't need to check your third because it's going to be proportional as well. All right. Do you guys have any questions on those 2 examples? Yes.
Maybe similar and congruent.
Yes. Yes and no. Okay. So any 2 figures that are congruent, they are also similar. However, if they're similar, they are not necessarily congruent, because if they change size, they're no longer congruent. So it's kind of like when you say a square is not a rectangle, but a rectangle, or a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle is not a square. Yeah. So But you want to classify these as best as you can. So you could say these are congruent, but to be even better, your answer would be they're similar. All right, any other questions on that stuff? Okay. So now we're going to get into groups. We're going to do a group activity. I want groups, well, let's see, 3 groups. So I think if you 3 would work together, you 2, and yes, and then you 4 here on the end work together. Each group is going to be given 3 little cards, and they're going to have figures on them. And it asks you to find either a congruent or a similar figure. It'll tell you on there what you're supposed to look for. And the cards that you will pair them with are, I have them, and I'll take them up around the room. And you'll find, so out of these cards, you'll find your shape that is congruent or similar. And once you've found the one that's congruent or similar, you'll tape it up next to this card that's already taped up on the wall. And you need to make sure you guys work together as a group. Just because you have 3 cards and 3 people doesn't mean you can give 1 card to each person and do it that way. Each person needs to kind of work together, and you need to collaborate as a group. And then I want you to discuss why the figures are congruent or similar. So what makes it congruent and not similar, or what makes it similar and not congruent? Okay? All right, so you guys can start. I'll take these up, and then you guys can start working on that. And if you guys have any questions, raise your hand. Feel free. I'll be walking around to help you guys. So whenever you guys need to, you can get up, start walking around, start looking at these shapes so you can find your.
Alright, come on.
And some of them I have them will be pasted on the desk, so make sure you look there as well.
I have a, looking for a right triangle.
Just bolt around it.
Sure.
When you guys find one, come out with your tape so you can tape it up.
Do you see why it's congruent? They're just.
Oh, I can
Symbol,
symbol.
yeah, so.
Okay. Wait, more, you might get all 3 still. Just 2.
Yeah.
No, because they just drew the side that has to go from so like, and that's to grow like both. Wait.
See how it has 4 and 5 and then it's 2 and 3.
Oh, then it might be. Yeah, I think you're right. I didn't think that's a box.
Yeah, some of the graphs, the boxes are bigger, so it may not look like they're congruent, but they are.
Alright, let's look on the disc. No, these are both rectangles. Definitely not congruent.
This one.
Silly goose.
How many pieces?
2. Is this similar?
Did you find it?
I think it's
Alright,
congruent.
So this one has, you have 1. How many are canceled?
Holy smokes. Congruent.
This one has 2. How many is on the bottom?
What? 6.
So you had 1 and 4, so that's a 4. And then you have 2 over 6, which is, okay, so they're not
So they're
similar?
not similar.
Yes, good.
Okay, on to the next.
Where about that one? Did you guys, are you guys, we're done?
I think we need help.
Yeah, we need help. No, that's.
All right, are you looking for congruent?
Yeah.
Okay, so you, how many do you have here?
1, 2, 3, 4.
And how many do you have here?
Did you find one congruent?
Oh, yeah. 1, 2. Oh.
Guys, there's one up here too. Yeah. Okay, so it's not this one. Check that one. So you have two here and you have one there, right?
Okay.
And then four, two. Okay. So this one has, yeah, Joey's.
What?
This one, go check it with that one back there. All right, good, so we have all of those up.
It was that
Now that we have all those, tomorrow, we're running out of time, so tomorrow we'll kind of discuss these a little bit as a class. Today, when we finish up, I want you to write your conversation journals. I want you to write one thing you understood about today and one thing you need a little bit more help with.